Hey, what's up, Giants fans? Welcome to another episode of Giants Talk. I'm Kuiper here with Giants insider Alex Pavlovic. We've got a lot to talk about today, from breaking happenings going on with Jung to the Dodgers getting another unexpected big fish, first FanFest stop, and maybe most importantly, Alex sat down with Kurt Casali. Stay tuned towards the end of this episode to hear from Alex and Curt Casali. Before we get started, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini Sleep World. Mancini Sleep World is kicking off the year with their President's Day sale, where you can save up to $1,200. Mattresses start at incredible prices, like Beauty Rest Queen mattresses starting at just $299. You can get 0% financing for up to 60 months, including on Tempur-Pedic, with payments starting as low as $29 a month. Visit sleepworld.com. All right, Alex, we are recording this Wednesday night. Let's start out with the happenings on this very eventful Wednesday.
Busy Wednesday night. Just for people who maybe get their Giants news from us and not social media, which I wouldn't blame them. Jung got detained briefly on his way into the country at LAX. I assume some people ask me why he went to LA and not San Francisco. He's a Boris client, so I assume he's going to the Boris facility in Orange County for a few days or go see his agent. It was quickly. The Giants put out a statement, said all is good, but just for people who might have missed that.
It made for an impactful headline for social media. I know I was fired up for about 15 seconds until I clicked the link.
It's good for the graphics.
It absolutely is.
You know, he'll be at FanFest on Saturday, but apparently a paperwork issue for him. So
and as the kind of guy who is probably most likely to do a travel document or paperwork mistake, I can't judge him for this one.
Yeah, if your trip last year had happened at a different time, you might be might have been on TV going out of the country and into the country.
Exactly. But all right, no major issues there. But that's half the eventful Wednesday. The other one is elsewhere in the baseball world, and honestly, not just Wednesday. A lot of signings, trades, flurry of action since we last talked here on Giants Talk. But on Wednesday, the Brewers traded Freddie Peralta to the Mets for two of their top prospects within their top five. I know we got a lot of mailbag questions. We got a lot of chatter about Peralta being potentially a good fit with the Giants. Another one off the table.
Yeah, we'll talk in a bit about some of the other stuff that happened. We took Monday off for the holiday, and busy week for MLB, as you mentioned. But this one, it's very Giants related because he was a great fit. He's very close to Willy Adames. He really is kind of I think we still have questions in our mailbag queue about Peralta and what it would take to get him.
Now we know.
Yeah, so now we know. I don't know what the Giants version of this deal necessarily is. I mean, prospect rankings they go back in different organizations, view guys different ways. I think one tweet I saw from a New York writer said the Brewers really wanted the Jet Williams piece, which the Giants could replicate, whether it's the high end with Joswar or a Johnny Level or a Gavin Killeen. And then the second piece for them, the important one, I think, especially in a place like Milwaukee where they are constantly just churning and, getting rid of guys as they approach free agency, is they get Brandon Sproat, who's a really well thought of pitching prospect, and I assume goes right into the rotation and in their hopes probably for the next 6 years. And because this is what they do, he probably will turn into like Freddie Peralta down the line at some point. That they seem to be one of those organizations that does that. But I think that's from a Giants perspective. And again, this is like an hour after this trade happened, but they don't have that pitching piece right now. They do have Landon Roop, but they need Landon Roop. And so if like a Birdsong or Wisenhunt's close, not quite as highly ranked as some of these other guys who have been traded recently, but that is the key. And we'll talk about the Baseball America list and the nice job they're doing with position players, but they're missing some of those pitching guys right now, which obviously they need at the big league level, but also can be very helpful when you're trying to trade for a Peralta, to a team that now has a hole in their rotation. And you go, well, here's the guy who you can feel really good about going forward. So that was one thought I had. And then the other one, just the Mets, I think, have they put together the dream offseason for Giants fans?
They really have. They're, for all of the people saying the Giants won't go for it, the Giants have had a lackluster offseason, the Mets have given the perfect place to point the finger at and say, that's the playbook we should have ran.
It's Peralta. I mean, it's Bichette, which is a massive, massive contract. And I don't know if you saw his press conference. Somebody asked him about him having an opt-out after 1 year, and he didn't even answer. He let his agent answer it. Probably a 1-year deal, but the Giants are looking for second baseman. He was the best option potentially out there. And then Luis Robert, who he's made sense for the Giants for quite a while, just as a potential flyer. So an interesting team, I think, to follow on the East Coast this year. And they come in really early. They come to Oracle the second week, but and then Marcus Semien too wanted to be a Giant and went to Texas. So they have a lot of guys who could have been here under other circumstances.
Yeah. It's, I understand the frustration from Giants fans when you see other teams doing this. And we'll get into the Dodgers thing and what that means for next year. But I'm sitting there banging on the gate. Why can't that be us? Let me in.
That could have been a Giants offseason. I mean, it just would have been, a lot of money, but could have been a Giants offseason in another universe.
Yeah. Well, I guess where the Giants are focusing is on the next generation, on Bryce Eldridge, and more. Giants had their first FanFest in San Jose, where fans got to meet Eldridge, got to meet Tony Vitello, got to meet much more. Alex, you were there.
I was there. It was good turnout.
Okay.
Met a lot of podcast listeners, so shout out to all those people.
Now, you and I stew in the broth of discontent for Giants fans on social media. How are the vibes at in-person Giants events here in January?
It was good. It was good. I mean, I was telling somebody as I was leaving, I think one thing that's disappointing about this new way of doing FanFest is they don't get a lot of players. And
that's fair.
It wasn't, my early years of covering the team, Bumgarner would never show up, but other than that, everybody else made it to FanFest. And we, you probably remember, Tim Lincecum and Hunter Pence having a good time on stage. That is such a level of stardom here that is above what almost everybody on this roster is. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a little disappointing that they don't just have, I give tremendous credit to the guys who were there, and Tristan Beck in particular, went out of his way to just give, I think, a special moment to, I was near a photo booth that he was at, and he just went out of his way to be, something, especially with kids, that I think they'll remember forever, just having a couple minutes there with the big league pitcher. But it's a little weird because it's just kind of spread out now, and Jung Lee and Logan Webb are doing one. Robbie Ray's supposed to do one, but a lot of the team stars not going to be involved, and a lot of the younger guys not going to be involved. So, but I will say the people who show up I think my disappointment in people not showing up and Giants not showing up is the fans who show up to FanFest are very, very passionate and very optimistic. I think most of them, and I would also say are the ones who are through thick and thin, are the ones who are there when they're 81 and 81 every year. Yeah. So
those are the ride or die fans.
So, it was I think an optimistic group. I did talk to some people who are podcast listeners, and I think a couple people asked me specifically about guys who went up. Somebody asked me about Peralta. Somebody asked me about Bichette, guys who have gone off the board. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was. I think those people are very passionate, and that's what the Giants can count on at the start of the year. There's a big group of fans who, no matter how disappointing this offseason might have been, are still going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I saw the 4-stop tour format, and I just assumed that final stop at Oracle Park was going to be kind of the FanFest we knew, the all hands on deck one. But just now, as you're talking, I'm looking it up, and it's in the middle of spring training. The Giants have a game against the D-backs in Scottsdale that day, or I think it's away, or no, in Scottsdale that day. That's just going to be Lucille and Kruk and Kuiper, I guess. So yeah, I miss exactly what you're referring to. It was just a real good chance to get an intimate look at like how cool our fan favorites actually were. You get to see Hunter Pence as a person. You get to see Timmy smiling with their competitive faces off. So that is a bit of a bummer. But yes, shout out to the guys who did come. And this is not the only stop. They'll be in San Ramon, California on January 24th, Sacramento on the 31st, and then that Oracle Park open house in March.
I thought it was really well done, really well organized. And Tony was up there early and he, I know he was excited to take a look at it.
Is he the star of the show?
Definitely. And Eldridge too. Who new number, by the way, number 8.
New number. Sharing one with the Giants great and a FanFest great.
Yeah. I hope that I wonder if in a couple of years, like after we get, who knows what next year's planning will look like because of all the things going on. But
we're going to have FanFest in June.
Yeah. I think it'd be nice if they could get back to doing the big Oracle one. And those used to be 40,000 people.
I see the strategy of branching it out across Northern California. The Giants now, with the A's moving on to Nevada, the Giants have a massive geographic footprint that they can call their own. So, getting one in the East Bay, getting one in the North Bay, getting one in the South Bay, getting one in Sacramento, that makes sense. But I all think that should be in addition to the big SF one.
Yeah, I think especially just it's probably easiest for players too, just right before camp, just everyone show up in San Francisco. And back in the day, like that's when they would do all the commercials, they would do all the media stuff, and then go to Scottsdale and get going. So it's a different level when you're able to like get to the front of a line and Tim Lincecum's there.
Yes,
like that's who autographs your baseball. So or Hunter Pence. So I hopefully they can get back to that.
Yeah, but have you heard the stories from fans who wait in those long lines and then when they're 3 people away, Tim Lincecum gets swapped out for like Mike Fontenot?
I was like, what name are you going to throw out there? It can be tough, but
it happens. You get a story and an autograph then.
I just remember like the FanFest stage used to be some of the most memorable moments of a year would come out of those guys being on stage together. So
I'm assuming no juicy answers coming from the on-stage moments at FanFest. Am I right?
Not that I saw. I was walking around a little bit. Not a lot of news. Eldridge and Schmidt both had off-season wrist surgery. Both are going to be fine by spring training. Eldridge is in his final week of rehab here. Schmidt's a little bit behind him, but he said he'll be fine by the start of camp. They both obviously dealt with some level of trade rumors in the offseason. Like I said, Eldridge switched to number 8. That was the one they had held aside for him since September when he got called up, and a nice fit for him. He has a real number now. What else? No update on the coaching staff. No real answers there on when we might get a list. I guess we'll fill in Scottsdale, see who's coaching third. And we had a long conversation with Tony about closers, and I came away like kind of thinking he wants to have a closer by committee, but not totally. So that I think is going to be a camp competition. But obviously we've talked a lot about how they haven't gone out to get a closer. So
I've gotten to the point where I assumed it would be closer by committee, even if they weren't going to come out and drop that soundbite or use that phrase.
Everyone always thinks of doing that and says like the biggest out can come in the 7th inning. Yeah. It's really hard to stick to that.
Yeah. And it's closer by committee until one horse runs away with it and he's your 9th inning guy all year.
Or back-to-back guys like blow it and everyone's mad because you don't have a closer. So, Tony said he wants competition in March and we'll see what that ends up with. I do think they need to find somebody who is there in that 9th inning. I've covered enough teams, and I've talked to people on like, the 2016 team where they went to committee for a while, and we know how that season ended. But those relievers and some veteran guys in that bullpen were pissed off about like not knowing what their roles were. Yeah, and you could say the game has changed, but everyone wants a closer. So
hey, this is college baseball vibes this season, Alex. So who knows what
it really is. Yeah.
All right. I want to talk Baseball America's top 100 list. The rankings have come out, ranking all of the upcoming prospects across Major League Baseball. And the Giants placed 4 players on the 2026 list compared to only 1 player last year. That same guy is on both lists. But Alex, can you break down the 4 for us? I think anyone listening to this can guess who number 1 was. Probably the last time he is on this list, as he is graduating to the big leagues in 2026, and that's Bryce Eldridge.
Bryce Eldridge at number 18. The big thing, I think, even bigger than the 2 guys who snuck into the 100, was Joshua Gonzalez being at 30 as an 18-year-old. And I think he was like the youngest or the second youngest person in the top 100, like right there. He is on a trajectory that like puts you in the top 10 pretty quickly. Like if he has a good year at his age and being already considered like, and we'll see what other outlets say. I mean, this is all just for fun mostly, although teams look at it and it matters a little bit. But the fact that he is that highly thought of to be 30 already at the age of 18 after just a summer in the Dominican Summer League, I just think this is going to be a year where if he stays healthy and does what the Giants think he's capable of, like he could be a top 5, top 10 guy by the end of the year, just because a lot of these things are age. And, you know, this guy doing it at 18, 19, really, really, like, you shoot up these lists when you do that.
Okay, so we got Joshua Gonzalez at 30. Behind him, we start to get to the higher numbers of the top 100 with Bo Davidson at 87 and Johnny Level at 98.
The greatest name.
Not a name that has come up on Giants Talk at all. Have we talked about Johnny Level?
We have a little bit, and I talked to Joe Salermo about him last Thursday briefly, I think, but or maybe it was off air. I don't know. But I've written about him a little bit, talked about him a little bit. They think very highly of him. He just kind of gets lost in the shuffle because back-to-back years they have signed the top international shortstop and they drafted a shortstop in the first round. And Level most likely, I think, will be a second baseman as he moves through the system, but maybe he sticks at short for a while. I also think, you know, we talked about this with when they got Hernandez. Like at some point, some of these guys become really good trade chips because especially if you have multiple top 100 shortstop types and you have a shortstop signed for a long time. But it's, you know, a good moment for the Giants. I know they always talk about, and Randy Wynn said on this podcast a couple weeks ago, like, I hate prospect lists, but to have 4 in the top 100 and, you know, pretty quickly, Luis Hernandez is going to be a top 100 guy, and a number 4 pick should be a top 100 guy pretty quickly. So they're going to have this little churn here of these guys going, and it's good not just for the future of the Giants, but good for the future of trade discussions because it does always. It does. I still remember talking to Farhan after the Juan Soto trade to San Diego, and he was like, you know, you'd be kind of surprised. Like, it's not like you call a team and say, hey, we have a number 30 guy and a number 87, but it does matter to a lot of executives because they also know that they are getting judged by their fan base. And it's a lot easier to kind of weather that if you trade a Juan Soto when your fan base hears that you're getting like the number 8 prospect and number 25 and 77, whatever it ends up being. Then if it's just a bunch of guys, you're like, we really like these guys. So these things do matter a little bit. And I think the exciting thing for the Giants is, you know, a bunch of position players headed to the big leagues, and Bo Davidson, like, not too far away for an organization that needs some outfield help. Yeah.
Do you think that's like not this upcoming season, but the next season we get eyes on him?
Yeah. If all goes according to plan, I mean, I think Bo's somebody we're going to be talking about this summer. Like you and I will, but just
bold predictions. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot ahead of him in terms of outfielders in the system, and they want to move guys slowly, but also at some point, you know, if somebody's talented enough and somebody can help you, you got to take a look at that. So there's just not a whole lot ahead of him.
The only other question walking away from it, I don't want to get greedy, but I was surprised Gavin Killeen wasn't on this list. I think the internal rankings have him in the top 5 ahead, like mixed in between these guys.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's different outlets view guys differently, and I think he was more of the, like, I don't want to say like the Joe Panic type of first rounder, but like not the super young, like toolsy. He's just a really good baseball player, they think. So
yeah,
doesn't surprise me that he doesn't end up high on these prospect lists, but they think highly of him, and he'll have a chance to prove it. He hasn't really gotten to play a whole lot either. So
okay. Right.
But I do think this summer, like the number 4 draft pick, like usually those guys just, you see like that August reshuffle, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, the Giants have the 67th best prospect too. So, yeah, it's a same thing we talked about last week. Just it is one area where they don't have Freddie Peralta and they don't have Bo Bichette and Luis Robert or Kyle Tucker or Cody Mellinger, but their farm system's headed in the right direction.
All right, baby steps. With that, let's get to the the depressing part of the podcast before we moved on to mailbag questions and your sit down with Curt Casali. And of course, by the depressing part of the podcast, I do mean that the fully operational Death Star in Los Angeles, the unequivocal bad guys of baseball, did it again. They can't keep getting away with this. Kyle Tucker, arguably the biggest free agent on the market, signed in LA for a just insanely large deal.
I can't even keep up with all of the like the signing bonus alone is basically a record for one season. And
I think I read he's making $1 million in 2026, and the rest is deferred and bonus.
It's like signing bonus too. I mean, he'll get that, so it's not deferred. It's for tax. I don't know. I think he lives in Texas or something, but that's a tough one for the California tax base, I believe.
Come on, man, Kyle, we're counting on that.
Yeah, this is. People were joking about it, and we had a question in a mailbag last week from someone who's like, "Why aren't the Dodgers doing anything?" And everyone's just kind of joking that they are just waiting until the end, and then they'll just sign Kyle Tucker.
Yeah,
and it truly does seem like some of these guys go and shop around and then take their favorite contract variation to the Dodgers and say, "Will you match this?"
Yeah. Does this work for you guys?
Yeah. Does this work? They go, "Yep, cool." We have Kyle Tucker now too. To be frank, haven't seen a whole lot of him like dominating. He had not a rough year, just not the walk year he wanted, but obviously he was a guy who wanted $400 million. So a very good player, slides into a very good lineup, going to hit second or third. I don't know. Will Smith's going to hit fifth, and Teoscar, who knows? Max Muncy's going to hit seventh.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, though, you're
all you need to do is sneak past that.
All you got to do is get Edman and Pages.
Pages is looking around like, where am I?
I will say, from a Giants perspective, like, we're not going to beat the Dodgers in the division anyway, so they probably don't have to, worry about that too much. And also, the guy who's replacing Michael Conforto was the best player in baseball when he played the Giants. So
yeah, I mean, maybe really this is a downgrade versus the Giants.
Yeah, head to head, it's probably not going to be a huge problem for him. But rich get richer.
Yeah, the rich get richer. The obvious discussion point that has been brought up by this Kyle Tucker deal is what happens next year in the lockout. Is this going to force a salary cap? Is this going to force rule changes about deferred contracts? Do we want to address? I know we have a few mailbag questions.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here about the potential 2026, 2027 offseason strike. Does this seem like a good place to slot a few in?
We have a couple. We've had some people who have asked us, and listener Miriam in particular said, "Is baseball still going to strike in 2026?" And Robbie, with the lockout on the horizon, can we expect any real structural change to help with the competitive parity issues? I have just always thought they're going to have a lockout.
Yeah.
So that's because everybody in the game thinks that way. So you see that in all the coverage, and that's just because it's all anyone's talking about. And we're also, not too far removed from the last one. So
yeah.
stuff like this, I think, nudges it slightly. It's just easier if you're one of the owners who really wants to draw a line in the sand to point to Kyle Tucker and be like, really?
Yeah.
Back-to-back titles? You needed Tucker too?
Yeah.
You had to take him from somebody else? So, yeah, I think that's where this is headed. We'll have a lot of time to talk about this, but I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And, including some of the players who I don't blame anyone for wanting to be in LA and do this, but some of these contracts are really throwing the sport out of whack. And when you're getting a $65 million signing bonus, or you're going to New York for $40 million to play for 1 year, like there's just, I think I always talk about how every owner can do some of this stuff. Every owner can't give somebody $42 million to come there for a year and take on the risk that if they get hurt, they'll have the 3 years. There is an imbalance with some of these contracts now that is just going to make it really difficult to come to an agreement this offseason.
Yeah. Yeah. It puts me in a really hard place, because obviously I think the players should be going out there trying to get as much money as they can. And if the answer is the Los Angeles Dodgers, go for it. But also, don't you guys have any competitive integrity?
Yeah.
I know at the end of the day, this is millionaires playing a children's game for our entertainment. But I think back to the games I watched as a kid, where it seemed like the players hated each other and would go out there and just put their bodies on the line. And I don't know, they were playing baseball because they were sickos about winning, and not winning by joining the best team, winning by defeating the best team.
Yeah, it is. Some guys just want to hit between Ohtani and Betts and Freeman, and that's fine.
Some guys want to just pitch in the third slot when they would be an ace anywhere else and not have to handle the focus.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Tucker's going to do very well for himself. Blake Snell did very well for himself. Roki Sasaki won a title his first year, but I think it's gone over a tipping point where, and I'm always pro player too, and get as much as you can. And, we're talking about millionaires versus billionaires. So, but I do think it's at a tipping point, and it is really difficult, I think, to explain to 2/3 of the fan bases that you just are playing a different sport, and that's just the way it has to be. So
now a lot of those teams are really making that argument difficult by not spending enough.
Yes.
In the same way that the Dodgers are doing this, you have the Chicago White Sox and all kinds of teams who aren't putting a competitive effort into building a roster. And that just gives the other side all the fodder they need.
Yeah. And I've always been on the side of every team can spend more. The Giants should spend more. It has, I think, reached a tipping point where it's comical, how far ahead of the pack the Dodgers are and what they're able to do. And, even the Mets, to a certain extent, they did it last year. So I think that's where we're going to have a problem.
Didn't we kind of watch, we've seen teams attempt to do it and have it bomb. The Padres attempted, and obviously they're not in the gutter, but it didn't work.
I just think from an optics standpoint, this team that just won back-to-back years to get Diaz and Tucker, it's just going to be really hard to make that argument to, a fan in Milwaukee, for instance, that, and I know you could say you didn't have to trade Freddie Peralta, you can afford $8 million or whatever it is, but I think we've reached a tipping point where the numbers are so crazy that it's going to get really ugly. So unfortunately, we will. The good news is I quote tweeted the Kyle Tucker news and said, "What do you podcast about during a lockout?" And we've got some good ideas. So I'll save those and we'll be ready to go.
Awesome. Can't wait.
A lot of suggestions that we just become Sharks Talk.
All right.
So, I don't know.
I'll up on my hockey. Let's
I
do
don't know how.
I have tickets to go to a game in a few weeks.
Okay. Well, we both need to find out as much as we can about Macklin Celebrini over the next 9 months.
My wife is more interested in hockey than ever because of some television show. So I'm ready to be a Sharks guy.
What's that? What's
it called? It's an HBO show that's all the rage right now. We'll discuss off air.
The caught stealing of hockey.
Yeah, pretty much. Elsewhere around the league, Cody Bellinger ended up in New York with the Yankees for 5 years, 162 million. It is weird that he's a Yankee and like this isn't his first bout as a Yankee because I just do not picture him as a Yankee.
I think it's going to be weird when he retires, and I'm going to be like, how did Cody Bellinger never play for the Giants? It felt like he fit what they needed like 6 different times.
Yeah.
And I know some Giants people, like when he was really struggling after he had shoulder surgery, some of their people behind the scenes were like, we think we can fix him. Like if we get it. But he's done well for himself.
He has. And then big news around the league and big news here in San Francisco. Shout out to Forever Giant Carlos Beltran for making it into the Hall of Fame. A few weeks ago here on Giants Talk, we were predicting who the next Giant in the Hall of Fame would be. We said easy, Buster Posey, 2027, and we were off. We were wrong.
Was it 44 games?
44 games as a Giant.
Yeah.
Gave up Zach Wheeler to do it. What a legacy here in San Francisco. You know
what's interesting is Wheeler is his injury might impact this, and we'll see how he is coming back. But he's been so good for a few years now that I don't know. He might go down as a guy who compiles enough stats in his late 30s that like has this borderline Hall of Fame case at some point. That'd be funny if the Giants were part of like a Hall of Famer for Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah,
it is. I don't know if he'll get there, but
Giants kind of get screwed on both sides of a Hall of Famer for a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I still, they went for it, so it happens.
I don't know anything about the gambling apps. But if there's an app out there that's taking bets on will Carlos Beltran go in a Giants hat, I'll take that bet.
The
picture, those odds got to be huge.
It was funny that he was like talking briefly about. I heard some quote from him about Bruce Bochy and the Rolex. I'm like, such a small part of your career. Also, by the way, we're getting into some gray territory here of people who have done some things.
Yeah,
and. Guy who was not allowed to manage for a very specific reason. And anyway, Barry Bonds still not in the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame is a sham and continues making themselves a sham until Barry Bonds gets in. Someday, if my dad wins the Ford Frick Award, I will pretend like I never said that and I'll celebrate it. But in my heart where I stand.
I've always been I vote for A-Rod, I vote for Manny, I vote for all these guys because I just want it to get messy. And be like, this is ridiculous. Just put Bonds in.
I like that. I'm not a big Hall guy. I'm a messy Hall guy.
This is a step in that direction. Where there's going to be this collection of guys where you go like, okay, come on.
At some point they're just punishing Barry personally.
Which they are.
Yes. It's not a steroid thing. It's a Barry thing.
Somehow the rules change every time he's close to getting in. So.
Yep. That they do. All right. We've got more mailbag questions, and we have Alex's interview with Curt Casali. But first, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini Sleep World. Every purchase at Mancini Sleep World is backed by Mancini's Rest Easy Promise, which includes a 365-night comfort guarantee. Try your mattress for a full year. If it's not the right fit, they'll make it right. Free next-day delivery and old mattress removal. Buy today, sleep better tomorrow with no extra cost. And a best price guarantee. If you find a better deal, they'll beat it. Visit sleepworld.com. All right, Alex, let's start off with a question from Jeff. Jeff says, what do you think of the Giants signing Austin Hayes to play right field? He would probably be reasonably affordable.
He would be affordable. He hits lefties, so that fills a hole. That's something that, they still haven't really figured out in terms of adding there.
We already talked about how they need lefty specialists. Let's go.
I think not quite the defensive guy they're looking for, but he hits lefties. So, and we're still kind of waiting for them to add somebody notable to this outfield mix, at least for spring training, at least someone to come in and compete.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Works for me. Another signing that would probably be scoffed at on social media, but they need to be doing something.
At this point, I think they need to just fill some of these gaps of
exactly.
You were bad at this last year. You were bad at hitting lefties last year. Can you at least get slightly better there? So it's at least nudging you in the right direction. It won't be Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette, but it's getting you in the right direction.
Yeah, when we sit down and say where do they improve, we can at least say against lefties.
Yeah.
Next question is from Michael. Michael says, with all the depth now at shortstop in the minor leagues, will Posey and Manassian be using some of them as trade chips in the next few years? Given Adames will be holding down shortstop for the foreseeable future, I'd imagine some of these guys would also have to transition to another position if they develop faster than expected.
Yeah, they will. I mean, they kind of openly talk about that too. You have some options here. We've talked about that a lot, talked about it earlier in the podcast. I do think the other thing here is that oftentimes, everybody's a shortstop when they're the best player. And oftentimes these guys get moved and we don't know which one of these guys is going to end up at second or third or center field or left field or whatever this ends up being. Some of these guys will get moved, but I do think they're also going to use them as centerpieces for deals. And, a good reason to stay in the race through July, because they should have some options in July, just being like, hey, we have a bunch of guys who are 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever, play in the middle of the field.
Next question is from Julia. Julia says, with Netflix purchasing the rights to the opening night game, that means the Giants and Yankees will be the first baseball team featured on the streamer. Any thoughts on this? Also, any insight on how Netflix will approach broadcasters? Is there any universe where one of our guys could be calling the game, or do their NBC Bay Area contracts not allow that?
I will answer the second part first. I've heard rumors of people. I don't want to put anything out there on anybody before.
I mean, I have a guess with no information.
What's your guess?
This sounds like it would be a Hunter Pence joint. Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, we're not going to see your dad, right, on Netflix.
No,
but
no. In fact, I had a conversation at dinner with him tonight about how weird it is that he's not doing opening day.
Yeah.
And I was like, should I not go? Do you want to just watch the game together on the couch?
Yeah. I think we'll see what that is still being to be determined, I think, with Netflix, and also other places getting you. There's a lot of changes nationally for baseball this year, so that's to be determined. To the other part of this, any thoughts on this? I selfishly, as somebody who loves doing the pregame show on that first day, there's a lot of buzz. I even sometimes wear a suit for it. I don't know what we're going to do for that first Netflix game. I assume we can't have a pre and post game show. So
yeah, I don't think I have anything against it, philosophically, but it is a bummer that for the big opening at home for the first time in a while, we won't get to be able to be part of it, have the hometown guys, have the festivities we love. Yeah. I don't have a Netflix subscription. I'll figure out what my plan is here, but
only one.
Maybe I'm coming over to your house.
All right, come on. Yeah, bring Dwayne.
Great. We'll do it.
I guess I probably still have to cover that game, but
yeah, that's true.
Come over.
Yeah, I mean, I figured we're doing a podcast afterwards or something.
Yeah, you could babysit. No, we will podcast that night. My line on this is always the same, and it was the same with the Sunday games and Sunday morning games and in the Apple TV games on Friday nights. I have no problem with any of it. I think a lot of them do really good work. I do like getting to see national teams in a different way. I also wish they could, find a way that the local markets could at least do what they do, because baseball is such a local sport in terms of when it comes to TV. So
yeah, it's the exclusivity of it. I think that makes it a bummer. For people who don't have Apple TV, people who don't have Netflix, I know they're trying to reach a new market, a new audience, or they're just trying to cash a large check. But I just hope they're not alienated existing audiences in the process. Well,
it's good we're talking about this in January, because, start telling your mom and your dad and your uncle and whoever that this is happening, because people are going to be freaking out on that Wednesday night when they can't find the Giants. Yeah, so totally. Get them ready for it.
All right. Duncan says, what was Posey doing in Korea besides the high school seminar? It didn't seem like he was didn't seem like he was in any of the media for the trip. Was he low-key making moves?
He met with the commissioner of the KBO.
Okay.
I think he met with some other high-ranking people. Part of this was, goodwill and doing the stuff with Jung. Part of this was the Giants continuing to spread their wings out there a little bit. But one thing Tony said over the weekend was he said that it seemed like the trip was much longer than it was because of all the social media stuff that people saw. So much of that was delayed. They weren't actually there for that long. So
yeah,
kind of in and out.
You film 2 days of content and post for a week. I get that. I've done that.
I don't think there were any secret deals struck, but
okay,
it was the next one, the next Jung to come down the line.
Yeah. Now they know Buster's face, and they've got a Giants hat in their closet. Last question before we get to Curt Casali is from Jenna. Jenna says, in the case of a young player like Hayden Birdsong, how can a new manager or coaches help with his control issues? Is it that there are a new set of eyes that see different mechanical flaws, or is it as easy as hearing the same thing from a different person?
I think it's a little bit of everything. There is a new set of eyes, and maybe they can find something. There's 3 new sets of eyes, 4 or 5, even if Tony Vitello used to be a pitching coach back in the day. I think the most important thing here is just a fresh approach for him. And the interesting thing about Hayden is that he's always had some command issues, but it wasn't what we saw, the 2, 3, whatever it was, weeks before he got sent down. So and he talked very openly about there being a force field around the plate. And so I think he needed to reset. And I think this is maybe a specific case where it's mentality more than mechanics, probably, and figuring a new way to get through to him. And so maybe a new coaching staff will be helpful. But I think I mentioned here before, it was one of the questions during these interviews to the guys, what can you do to fix Hayden Birdsong? So
did we ever officially use the phrase the yips for this? Is that what this is?
I don't think so, because he went down to AAA and he was, there were some big misses still, but he was pitching through it. They never shut him down for 2 months so I think for him it was something weird happened last year, and this all came at him really quickly. And I know I've heard good things about the offseason he's had, and we'll see what they're able to do. But I've said it a million times here. To me, he stands out as such a potential swing piece for him. Is this offseason's been disappointing. Who can take the leap next year and help the Giants go from 81 to 87 wins or whatever it takes? He stands out as near the top of that list for me.
Yeah, a fixed Hayden Birdsong, I think, would be one of the biggest possible things went right elements that 2026 could bring us.
It is top 3 for me, and that's why it's so important to them behind the scenes as well, because they know that. Getting him right and getting him back to the guy where he looked like he was going to be the co-ace down the line is crucial for this season.
Yeah, I think we pegged him as most likely to throw a no-hitter on the team.
Yeah, I think in a number of ways. I mean, whether he jumps back in and becomes a good starter again, or I think he has the stuff to be a closer. So they just, whatever it is, they just have to figure it out in Scottsdale.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on that, obviously. With that, let's get to your chat with former Giants catcher, now Giants advisor to baseball operations, Curt Casali. Alex, you've known Curt for a while. Anything we need to know going into this interview?
We spoke 5 weeks ago, so I don't fully remember. But some of this we held some of these for January. We spoke at the winter meetings, but he's a special advisor who's doing what Javi Lopez is doing. I think providing a different perspective. One interesting thing about him being in that front office is literally just a year ago was trying to figure out how to get a lot of these guys out. So a different perspective there. And I always, catchers are just their own breed. And, the guys who especially are do what he did, which is be a starter at times, but be a backup for a lot of your career and bounce around and have a good reputation. It seems like those guys get to decide when they retire. Do you want to be in a front office? Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to do TV? And he's going to do front office first. But I think he can manage down the line as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as soon as next year or the year after, you start like hearing his name in some of these discussions.
Catchers are just built different. It's
They
crazy.
really, yeah. And it's interesting because you're going to start looking around at some point and seeing, Hundley's going to manage at some point, and Stephen Vogt, and if Casali does as well, and just a lot of guys who are Buster Posey's backup here are going to be in prominent spots. And then obviously he's president of baseball operations. So
yeah,
interesting how it all went down.
All right. With that, here is Alex with Curt Casali.
Kurt Casali, you are fresh off a playing career. I want to ask you, first of all, because we're at the winter meetings. As a player, I'm sure you kind of sit there and maybe see social media stuff about the winter meetings and what's going on. Being here, what are your first impressions of like what this whole thing? It's different. What this is actually like.
It's wild, actually. I went down the lobby, I guess midday yesterday during a lunch break, and it sounded like we were out in the forest, and like it felt like cicada season, just like that kind of buzzing around, and it was pretty cool. I've run into a lot of people that I've known over the years, which is a cool opportunity. Gotten a lot of steps in, snuck in a couple meals. Got to see Jeff Kent's introductory into Baseball Hall of Fame yesterday. That was pretty cool. But it's kind of everything I expected it to. I've been a big fan of it for a while now, and I'm glad I get to finally see it face to face.
Yeah, we get a lot of steps in. How did you get from where we last saw you? And you played for the Giants a couple of years ago, but last spring, I think, with Atlanta. How did you get from there to here, being a special advisor for the Giants?
I had an opportunity last year to go work with the Cincinnati Reds with Nick Kroll, who I consider a good friend and mentor through my years there. Got to spend the summer with them. Dipped my toes in the water. Got some real life experience in terms of the front office part of it. Got a little bit of scouting experience, but a role for this year didn't come to fruition, and I was fortunate enough to have a couple phone numbers in my back pocket, and the first one was Buster, who just so happens to be a former teammate of mine, which I think is pretty unique in this industry, and jumped at an opportunity to come on board an organization I know really, really well, and I believe in, and think I can help. You mentioned Jeff Kent. He talked about the moment where he saw a ball get by him and go to right field, where he was like, I think that might be it for me as a player. Was there a moment for you at the end of your playing career where you're like, I think it's time to see what's next in baseball? Yeah. I felt like I had a really good offseason going into the 25 spring training with Atlanta. And then I think I went over 14 in spring. I had trouble picking up the ball. I had trouble matching the speed that the ball was coming in with my bat, and I was just thinking, it felt like it was kind of deteriorating for a little bit, and I said, whenever my physical ability kind of wanes, then it's got to be time, because I have other interests in this sport. It's always been a part of my plan, and I'm lucky to be able to jump right into a new role like this. But was it a little bit sad? Sure, but I feel pretty proud of what I put together on the field. So it was an easy departure, I guess. So I'm walking around last night and I see Stephen Vogt, and 5 minutes later I see Nick Hundley. Now I'm talking to you. I'm like, the Giants' backup catchers, Posey's backup catchers, they've done well. And with catchers, we're always like, that guy's going to be a manager. And I think a lot of the guys I've covered, and I told you this, I'm like, that guy could hop right into a TV booth. What do you look at down the line? I know you're getting your feet wet in terms of front office, but I think we all just assume that any good backup catcher type is going to become a manager at some point. How do you view that? I think a big reason why that happens is because we spend more time on the bench than we do on the playing field. So we get a little bit of the vibe in terms of what moves are about to be made, when my number could be called, because that's kind of the whole point, is like, well, is there a situation where I could be used here? I need to keep myself ready. And then I'm thinking, well, if I could be used here, then so could player X, player B, player Y. And it just kind of, it kind of starts, trickling in your mind, just thinking like how the manager would play this out. And I think it's just natural that it happens to, secondary catchers, or, but it is interesting to think about that, those types of guys end up being managers or prominent TV personalities or something like that. I haven't exactly decided about my future. This is my first step, and it works with what I have right now, what time I have to give in terms of just my family at home, and Buster's really understanding of that. So that's why it feels like a great fit for me.
Buster mentioned something the other day about, he's like, you were so fresh off the playing field that maybe there's something you can offer from that perspective. How much do you think you can help just with, like, a lot of these guys are looking at in free agency and trades. You're like, I caught this guy. I just faced this guy. I know people who caught this guy. What kind of perspective can you bring?
It definitely could. It's definitely a cool perspective, I think, and something that, maybe not everybody in our room can attest to. Do I think it's the only opinion? No, because there's a lot of people in that room that are smarter than me. But if my goal would be to offer as much as I can to help the Giants win as many games as possible, the opportunity I have to play for a long time and, kind of come right into this role, being able to say that I've played for a lot of different teams, spring training, different organizations. It's allowed me to meet a lot of cool people and experience a lot of what people have to offer in terms of their talent on the field. So I think I have a decent bit to offer, at least.
You're a Vandy guy. I think you're still in the Nashville area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Are you familiar at all with Tony before this? Or?
I knew of Tony just because of his position at the University of Tennessee. I try not to pay attention to Tennessee sports just because they're kind of our arch rival in baseball, at least. And we beat their tail pretty good in football this year, which was nice. But I definitely am excited to see what he can bring to our organization. It's I think it's been a long time coming that somebody from college baseball can jump into the big leagues. He's won a national championship. He's had a lot of success at the college level, and I just don't see why that can't translate to the big leagues. I think it might take a little bit of buy-in from our players, and I expect them to do that. But once they do, it could be a game changer. We'll see.
That's the big question everybody has, is how is he going to convince big leaguers? And I've talked to some Giants who are a little just curious about how this is going to go. Having been at a big-time college program, having spent so many years in Major League Baseball, what do you think the key is going to be for him in spring training to get that buy-in right away?
My experience with college coaches is that they tend to be great motivators, great leaders, and I think that part could be missing from Major League Baseball. Managers taking the time to listen. Managers got a lot on their plate.
It's a CEO job.
I get that. Yeah. I get that. I'm not discounting anything that these guys do, but maybe they could take a little bit more time to figure out what makes me tick. And I think that Tony has the opportunity to do that, and maybe hiring somebody of his stature can equate to more wins for us and put us in a position to be successful. I think that was the ideology in hiring him, and I think he's just a great leader. And you don't get to be in the interview room or in the door without knowing baseball. He obviously knows baseball, but I'm hoping that he can be a great leader of men in our locker room.
I think maybe one thing, if they haven't leaned on you already, they will lean on you, the Giants, in terms of ABS and how to handle everything that's coming down the line. Have you thought much about you're not going to end up playing under it really, but about what that system will mean for catchers and for the game?
It's going to change how we judge them and how we grade them for sure. I like the idea of it with the challenge system. I think it's about time that there's some accountability for maybe the guy behind the plate. But it goes both ways. The catcher now, he might not be able to trick or persuade the umpire into making a ball a strike. But if the umpire happens to mess up or doesn't call it, the catcher has to be responsible for knowing the strike zone. So and to be able to challenge it correctly and on time. So I think that presents a different opportunity for Patty to get in the cage, maybe on the TrueDeck system and gain another skill in terms of, all right, I know that this pitch is a strike, as opposed to I'm making this ball I know is a ball a strike. This is a strike.
Yeah.
He called it a ball. I got to tap my head.
Yeah.
And make a difference that way, because it could be a huge game changer for somebody that does know the zone versus that doesn't know the zone.
The conventional wisdom out there is that Patrick is better than this than anybody in the world, and that this is going to be harmful. to just his value, taking that away. But when we talk to him, I think he's come around to like, there's going to be all this stuff we don't think about where he's still much better at that than anybody else, and he's still going to have an advantage. Do you think is this going to impact him at all, or is he still, like you said, going to find ways to be the best?
Well, I think it'll impact him for sure, just because it's something new that he has to learn. It might not be, earth-shattering skill, because he has a great understanding of what he does. He's the best defender in baseball at the moment. If you're looking at numbers, I'm a big fan of Pat, and I have full confidence that he'll be able to do the same thing that he did with his receiving with the ABS system. He's that skilled at it, and I expect him to be great at it.
I look back at your career, and it coincides with the 1 year in the last decade with the Giants that's just such an outlier for every other year. When you think of 21 and you guys try to get back, 107 wins, probably that's a hard thing to say, let's get back to that. But back to that kind of baseball, does anything stick out from that year where you go, this is maybe what's been missing before and after that and something we need in 26?
That year would be hard to replicate, I think. I think that was... for lack of a better term, like lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
We signed a very particular set of players, along with some perennial all-stars. Anytime you have a team with Buster and Belt and Craw, like those guys have won World Series, so they're the mainstays. They're the catalyst of that whole organization. And then you sprinkle in a couple missing pieces there, but I don't know if it's repeatable. Mm-hmm. I hope it is, because that was some of the most fun I've ever had playing baseball. Just coming to the park every day knowing that you're going to win that day, and figuring out how you're going to celebrate. And I remember we were down, I think 7 or 8 nothing in the second inning to the Diamondbacks one day at home, and Buster came up to me and I wasn't playing, he was starting, and he leaned over the rail and he looked at me and he goes, I wonder how we're going to win today. I wonder how.
It's funny you mentioned that game. Austin Swaders brought up that game with me.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
He looked me dead in the eye. He goes, I wonder how we're going to win today. Because he knew we were going to win. And we did. I think he has it a grand slam or something to put us away. But, special season for me, and I hope we can, replicate it in some way.
I'll try to find some of that. I'm going to finish with maybe a dumb question. Everybody sees between innings, the catcher goes out to warm up. Whoever's not playing that day goes out to warm up. A lot of times we'll see like Craig Albernaz will go out. What are the mechanics of that? It feels like it's changed a little bit over time, where you see other guys out there sometimes. But what's like the dugout discussion of like, hey, I need more time, or I need you to go out there?
There's only a couple people that are, in my opinion, physically capable of doing it. Albie can catch for whoever. Like that was, he caught for a long time, so I'm not ever worried about him. I think it's more just about availability. Like if I was in the cage warming up, or taking some batting practice down there, just getting ready for a potential at bat, and I missed it on the screen because there's a 5 or 10 second delay. Somebody is responsible for picking up the slack on me. They usually grab my glove, grab my mask, and go out there and make it happen. But I'd like to say it happens organically, but sometimes I just royally mess it up.
It's one of those little things. Sometimes I look out and I'm like, that's a coach.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it has to be somebody who has confidence in their hands to go out there. Either that, or just wait for me to be ready, and hopefully the umpire doesn't call a ball on us to start the inning.
Was there anybody when you were catching who, maybe a Giant, who you hated warming up, or you're like, that's
Camilo Doval.
I was going to say that's probably the guy.
Yeah, I rarely wore a mask out there because it's kind of like a rite of passage to get to the big leagues. You don't have to wear a mask. Like, it's pretty dumb. You should wear a mask always if anybody's listening out there. But every time I had to warm up Camilo, I'm wearing a mask.
So it's a special case there.
His special case. He's got a great arm.
He has a very good arm. Curt, it's great to have you back. We really enjoyed covering you. I still remember when you got traded, and we're all like, oh, that kind of sucks. Like, he was just like a go-to guy for us in the clubhouse. But welcome back, and I'm excited to see how this goes.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.